How's it going, everybody? In this video I'm going to show you how I unwrapped this character, and what is different about this video is I'm going to be doing the unwrapping like Blizzard does. I recently did a dissected video. If you don't watch my other channel, dissected video is where I showcase what AAA developers are doing for their game assets, characters, and environments alike. And we've been seeing from Blizzard that they have a particular way of unwrapping their characters. You can also see it in Fortnite and Valorant, but I call it the Blizzard way because it's where I saw it first. So if we go to the UVs, you can see that there's a lot of rectification. This is a leg. It's a full rectangle. This is an arm. And you can see that various parts of the body are actually rectified, not fully, but are very neatly unwrapped. The reason why I'm doing this video is because I've seen a lot of people online saying that if you do it this way, then you're going to get a lot of distortion with your bakes, and that is just not true. As you can see, I mean, AAA Blizzard does it for a reason. So, and I did it, and you can see that there is no distortion. This is just like the value paint over that I usually do for my characters before I add the base color. I like to paint with values. I think it's pretty fun. So if you want the short version where I just go into the specific tools and things that I use without looking at the whole process, then I'm going to leave a link for my other channel where you can see a shorter version of this. Otherwise, stick around and let's get started. Now, let's get started with deleting half the character, and that's because you work smarter, not harder in this industry. People want to be efficient as they can be, so instead of unwrapping both sides, I'm just going to unwrap one side, and then I'm going to use the mirror tool. All right, and this is what we had for UVs. What I did is I just did a camera-based projection. You can do whatever projection you want. That's usually how I start the character. And we're gonna go from what, in my opinion, is the easiest part to the hardest part. So easiest part, what I would call easy, is, let's say, the arm and the forearm, the leg, all the way to the feet. The torso, I would call it medium, usually because the torso may or may not have variations other than being a cylinder, because that's what makes it easier. The fact that this is pretty much a cylinder, same thing with the leg, that's what makes things a lot easier. Then the hardest part would be the fingers, because the fingers is just a bunch of arms, and then the face. So let's start with the arm, and we're going to place a seam around here. Yeah, let's go with this over here. I'm going to cut, and then we're going to go to the bottom all the way before the hand starts. We could do it here. However, I like to do it on the natural loops. So we cut there, and then we have the UV shells. Take this UV shell out of here, same with the hand. And all we have is the arm in the 0 to 1 space. Now what we're gonna do is we need another seam to unfold. And I usually go with like the inside of the arm. So let's look for, put this away for a second. And let's look for what I would think is a natural seam. Let's do this one over here. So, and select UV shell, unfold. All right, and this is why I call it the easy part, because as you can see, we are, let's say, 60% there. All right, now what we need to do is we need to square this off in kind of like a rectangular fashion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the UV portions. And again, you can do this on your tool of choice. I know that this can be done in Max. I just don't like to use the pelting tool the way that Max does it. I've been using Max for so many years too. Once you select it, then all you got to do is align to the bottom. Whoops, I missed one. So yeah, just make sure that you got these types of tools, and you'll be able to replicate this process on any software you have. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the edges over here. Now, one thing that I need to mention is make sure you are in UV, because if you are in vertex, then you're going to be selecting the other side too. So that can be a problem. All right. So it looks super stretched right now, but don't worry. And now we're going to unfold along the U. Remember, U is horizontal, V is for vertical. So we're going to do that, and you can see it does that, and it kind of gets it where it should be, but there are some problems here at the bottom, so we just do it again. And all right, now let's check our work, and let me make this bigger so we can see things a little bit better. All right, so we are good here, but we are not great here. One of the things we can do is make it a little bit smaller like that. And one of the problems that I'm seeing is that around this area right here, I'm getting too much distortion. So what we can do is unfold vertically. There you go. And you can see now the squares are a little bit better. All right. So we have the arm unwrapped. And I know some of you are going to say, well, there's a little bit of distortion. That's why I showed you in the intro how this bakes, because you see how it bakes really good and there is no problem whatsoever. We can grab certain parts here, and I like to do an unfold to make sure that everything is doing fine. Now, one of the issues with this is we, especially nowadays, we want everything to be as automated as possible. This isn't a process that I would call can be automated if you want it to look like this. There are tools that can help you automate unwrapping that will get you good UVs. Now, if you want this types of UVs specifically, I personally have not seen any tool that can help you achieve this without, going in kind of guiding the vertices and all of that. So again, if you know of an automated tool that can do this, please leave in the comment sections down below. I'll be very interested to know about that. So one of the things you can do is align your seams. What you would do is go to vertex, select both, and you do align, and you can see that they switch. So now these two vertices are aligned. So I'm going to go and do that for the whole thing. And then I'm going to unfold it again, just so there's no issues right there. Now, again, I'm just showing you this because somebody may need to use it, but I personally don't do this often because I haven't seen any issues with the bakes if I don't do this. And also my geometry is a little bit higher, so if your geometry is lower or much lower than what I have right now, this may actually affect your texture. So just so you know that this is something that you may have to do. Now, what I'm going to do after I did all that alignment is I'm going to fix this issue by just unfolding along the vertical axis. So you're going to see that right now, the texture is going to do this and it's going to go up. It's going to go up. It's super distorted. It's horrible. But once I do, make sure you look at this part. Once I unfold along the vertical axis, you can see how everything is fixed. And everything goes straight through the seam and the texture looks seamless, which is one of the things that you want. Even though you're hiding your seam as much as you can, you still want your textures to be seamless. So you can see that over here, the squares are crossing over with minimal to no distortion whatsoever. Of course, there's this number right here. All right, now it's torso time. So when it comes to the torso, you can decide to unwrap the torso and the pelvis together. Like this guy has short, so I could go all the way from the chest area all the way to the torso. However, this character has a lot of polys. I think he is around 8,000 triangles, which it's industry standard for nowadays. But if you're making a lower poly character, then I would be unwrapping the whole thing. So we're going to look for a natural loop. Around here, we could use this. Let me see. Yeah, it looks fine. Let's use the natural one. This one goes all the way around the character. And let me bring this up. We cut. And there it is. Now we need to cut it from the head. Let's just do torso and neck, because if you've seen the metahumans, usually there is a seam around here, which you could do. But for the head, we're just going to keep like the head, and we're going to include the neck in the torso. So let's do this line right here. And we're not going to unfold it just yet because we need to break it into front and back. If we don't do that, then this program's going to go crazy. It's going to make our life harder. So let's look for a seam here in the middle that we can use. Like if this character had a seam on the shorts, this probably would be it. So I'm just going to do this. So this is another texture that we're going to rectify quite a bit. There may be just like the arm, not everything's going to be rectified. So just as before, UVs. All right, so when it comes to this, it depends on how we're going to pack this up once we hit the other part of the symmetry. Because I may choose to put things out of the 0 to 1 space, but if not, then I'll just make a seam here, rectify it, and we'll do this in different pieces. All right, now let's do the face, which is one of the difficult parts. I'd say it's not as difficult as this part, but let's just get to it. So first we need to define where we're gonna have our seams. One of the things I usually do, some people like to leave the ears on. I like to take them off. They're usually covered by some sort of hairs or helmet or something. So having a seam here, it shouldn't be much of a trouble. I've seen it in very high-end video games. So it is an industry. Now, when deciding where we're going to place the seam for the head, one of the things that usually I do is separate the mouth bag and the eye sockets. When it comes to the ears, it depends. I've seen it done without like having the same UV shell with the ear. I've seen the ear in a separate UV shell, and I'm talking about AAA video games. So what I mean is it depends on what your director wants. I personally like to take it off. It's not that big of a deal. The seam is not super noticeable, so and it just makes UV a lot easier. So what I like to do is separate the ear as well as the eye sockets and the mouth. So we're gonna go get our edge tool, and over here, just going to do the natural seam. I'm sorry, the natural loop all around the eye. I think it stops here if I'm not mistaken. Yep, there you go. So let's do a cut and see if we can just grab that UV shell. Yes. I'm gonna do the same thing with the mouth bag. Let's go to the edge and let's see if we grab that natural seam. All right, cut. UV shell. Take that, put it away. Now let's do it for the ear edge to separate the ear. Cut. UV shell, put it away. All right, now we select this whole thing, unfold, and we have something that looks like a person looking to the side. In the end, we're going to symmetry and we're going to have the head being one UV shell as you saw in the intro. However, if you've seen my dissected video, which if you're watching this on my other YouTube channel, which is a tutorial one, the dissected video is videos where I look at game assets from AAA video games so we can know how the big guys are doing it. And when it comes to StarCraft, I've seen it done this way, where they actually have just one side and then the other side is either overlapping or out of the 0 to 1 space, just to save texture. But we're not going to do that because I've only seen it in StarCraft and I've seen it in the units. I haven't seen it in kind of like the cinematic-ish, like the in-game cinematics for StarCraft 2. So we're not going to go that. We're going to have the face with one UV shell. Just wanted you to know that that is a possibility, that I've seen it done in AAA video games. All right, let's do what, in my opinion, is one of the trickiest body part to unwrap when you're doing a humanoid character. So we already have it separated from everything else. What we need to do is make some seams, and I like to divide it into like the palm and the back of the hand. All right, there you go. So that's why good topology is always important, so you can find your seams easily. Unfold, and let's see what happens if we unfold this one. Okay, this is the problematic one. We'll deal with this one in a bit. Let's deal with, take this away, and let's deal with this one first. So the times that I usually do this, first I try to get my fingers straight, so I don't mind like whatever. I'm not looking at this. We're not going to be looking at that part. What I want is the fingers all pointing in the same direction. We also need to mind the size of the fingers, but we'll look at that after we have settled the position of the fingers. All right, so compared to what you saw a little bit ago, you can see that, yeah, the texture is a little bit weird because we're outside of the 0 to 1 space. And we're going to be unwrapping the palm. All right, so we got almost everything done. Got the head. And what, a couple things that I'm missing. I think I'm missing the mouth bag, the eyes, and the feet. We're gonna quickly do the feet. So let's go here, modify, layout, got the menu here. Let's see, padding resolution, all that, that's fine. Shell padding, let's do 2. And let's apply. The point of that was to get the textile density to one single type of textile density across the whole model. And one of the things that people commented, because I posted the packing that I did on social media, a lot of people say, well, the face is too small, it should have more resolution. And I agree. The problem is when you have a character that is showing, let's say it's a character that's, you know, bare chested, or it's even a character that has the face and the little bit of the upper chest showing. Maybe it's a female character, has a cleavage of that. If you have something like that and you're texturing, if your face or your head mesh, your head UVs has more resolution than everything else, once you are texturing, whether it's in Substance Painter or whatever program you're using, the results are going to be a little bit funky. Like you would have to mask and adjust just for the head, and it just makes for a lot more work than is necessary. So my train of thought is, if I'm having a character that's covered, like let's say all the way to the neck, then I would probably make this in a separate sheet or a separate UV texture set. The things, I could make it a little bit bigger. If you make it a little bit bigger, it doesn't matter that much. If you make it, let's say, like a whole UV sheet, like for instance what it is in the metahumans, once you're texturing, it can be a pain. So there's that. Now that we've done that, we're not going to use this packing. I just wanted to get the same textile density. We're going to bring in the other side of the character, and this is where we're going to determine a couple of things. I think I'm going to determine how am I going to pack this, because if you watch my dissected series, there's several ways that you can pack for a video game, even for some AAA that we've seen on the channel. So one could be overlapping UVs. The other one is to have the other side outside of the 0 to 1 space and make it tile. That is one way that you see it done a lot. Not every character does that. Let me bring in the other side and we'll decide that. All right, so we brought the other side. This is the mirror option that comes with Maya. Let's go to perspective. And we're gonna do a couple of things here. So what I did is I told it to flip, as you can see from this little menu, on the local U, so local horizontal. The reason for that is because even if we weren't overlapping UVs, I can always flip back myself manually and then tell the layout to overlap them. You can do that here in Maya, and as far as I know, many other tools you can do it in Max as well. So that's when I mirror, I always flip the UVs, so the process is much easier. Now what we're gonna do is we are going to stitch a couple things, like the face. We're going to stitch together this part over here. So let me just grab edges. And we stitch together. There it is. All right, now this is the face. We have a little bit of distortion there, but in my experience, it doesn't matter much. I personally haven't had any issues whatsoever when it comes to baking, as you saw in the intro. So I'm going to keep the face together. Let's select this shell and put it away. Let's continue doing the rest. All right, so let's see what happens when we join this, how the packing is going to be. All right, now let's look at the other parts. UV shell, let's do this and this. This is the other thing that was symmetrical that I think we should join. We're gonna join it from the front. So let's go to edge and stitch together. Boom, there it is. Now they're together. So we got our major pieces are going to be, our major shells are going to be these. So these two and this one right here, which will get a little bit smaller once we pack everything. Because again, I'm following textile density. I'm not going for giving this more textile density just to the face, because again, it can get funky when you texture. So when it comes to the legs, I think I'm going to overlap those. So let me all right, now it's packing time, and I'm going to go modify layout. Let's look at the menu. And as you can see, we have stack similar. Already have a checkout. Gonna apply. And there you go. Everything is packed. And as you can see, the head is a little bit smaller. All right, so we reached the end of the video. And just to show you, I baked the maps with everything that we've unwrapped. And I added a little bit of color to the paint over that I show you in the beginning, just so you can see that when it comes to adding color and textures and all that, there is absolutely no distortion. So you can see the guy, again, this isn't a full texture. This is just a paint over base where I would build upon, especially when it comes to skin, but it's a good place to start. And it's usually how I start my characters. If you'd like to see a tutorial of that, let me know. Although I did show a little bit of that texturing process when I talk about my Lyra character, the female sci-fi character that I did. It's in this channel. But yeah, I just wanted to show you the final result with some color. We can go to the UVs and you can see how everything looks pretty cool, nice and neat. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what other things you'd like to see on the channel. Do you like to see more characters, or you like me to keep to Unreal Engine stuff? Let me know in the comment sections down below. Subscribe if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.